The cost of ignoring family. In the bustling city of Abuja, a group of young men known as the Classic Boys lived lives of luxury. They had the latest cars, wore designer outfits, and spent millions in high-end clubs. To the outside world, they were successful and untouchable. But behind their riches was a strict rule, one that forbade them from helping their families back home. Among them were Kelvin, Jide, and Tony. They had come from humble beginnings, raised by struggling parents who sacrificed everything for them. But now wealth had changed them. Rising action. Kelvin's mother, Mama Kelvin, lived in Kogi State. She had worked day and night to send him to school, selling firewood to support him. She called him often, asking for help, but he always had an excuse. Mama, I'll send something soon. Yet that same night, he would spend millions on entertainment. Jide's father, Baba Jide, was a retired teacher in Osun State. His health was failing, and he needed urgent medical care, but Jide hardly answered his calls. Instead, he would send a small amount once in a while, just enough to keep them quiet. Tony's case was even worse. His sister, Amoka, was about to drop out of school because of unpaid fees. She sent him messages daily, but he ignored them. His club had a strict rule. Once you are one of us, your family no longer matters. And he obeyed. Their club meetings were full of laughter and false loyalty. They swore to stand by each other, but turned their backs on the people who truly mattered. Until one day, everything changed. The turning point. One evening, after another extravagant party, Kelvin received a phone call that made his heart stop. Kelvin, Mama collapsed. She needs treatment. Please help. His younger brother cried, but he hesitated. The club rule had always warned them against spending money on family. Jide, too, got terrible news. His father had been taken to the hospital. The doctor asked for 500,000, but Jide wasn't sure what to do. The club had always said, "Your wealth is for the brotherhood, not your past life." Tony got the worst news of all. His sister, Amoka, had collapsed in her school hostel. She had been struggling alone for too long. That night, while he was paying for drinks for strangers, his own sister was fighting for her life. Reality hit them hard. They had money, but they couldn't save their own loved ones. Tragic climax. Kelvin's mother did not make it. He tried to send money, but it was too late. The news shattered him. His last promise to send help soon had been a lie. Jide's father also couldn't hold on. The next morning, the doctor gave them the news. He had waited for help that never came. Tony's sister, Amoka, survived, but she left him a painful message. "Brother, I used to pray for you every day. I told my friends you would never abandon me, but you did. And now I know the truth." Her voice was filled with hurt and disappointment. That night, the Classic Boys Club held a meeting. Kelvin stood up. "I can't do this anymore." Jide and Tony agreed. But before they could leave, the club leaders smirked. "You can leave, but don't expect to take your wealth with you." The next day, their accounts were frozen. Their expensive cars, houses, and luxury lifestyles all vanished overnight. The same club that had promised them loyalty and riches had now left them with nothing. Falling action. For the first time in years, they returned to their villages in shame. Kelvin stood before his mother's grave, crying. Jide watched as his father was laid to rest, his heart heavy with regret. Tony fell to his knees before Amoka, asking for forgiveness. But the damage had already been done. Lessons and moral of the story. 1. Family is the only true support system. Wealth means nothing if you abandon the people who love you unconditionally. 2. Money without compassion is meaningless. Riches cannot replace the warmth of family. 3. Bad friendships will lead to bad endings. The Classic Boys promised loyalty but turned their backs when it mattered most. 4. Life will always remind you of what truly matters. The same money that made them arrogant disappeared overnight. In the end, Kelvin died, and Tony learned the hardest lesson of their lives. No amount of wealth can replace the love of family. But for them, it was too late. Final thought. If you were in their shoes, would you choose money and false brotherhood or family and true love?